Hello and welcome to the GD Politics Podcast. I'm Galen Drew. Last week, I had the chance to speak with Republican Senator from Alaska, Lisa Murkowski. We had a lengthy and pretty candid interview. We talked about what it means to be a lawmaker in an era when political violence is on the rise. We talked about her, at least, openness to changing how she identifies politically and which party she caucuses with in the Senate. In fact, we got into some specific hypotheticals there that are likely to pique folks' interest. We also talked about her likelihood of voting for the One Big Beautiful Bill Act and why she says that although she didn't vote to confirm Brett Kavanaugh, he has since proved her wrong on the court. But I started with a blunt question. Should the U.S. bomb Iran? That question is now outdated, but the answer that she gave me, which you'll hear in just a second, is telling of the ways that President Trump's decision may be causing consternation within his own party. Senator Lisa Murkowski has represented Alaska in the U.S. Senate since 2002. Her new book is called Far From Home. An Alaskan senator faces the extreme climate of Washington, D.C. This is our conversation.
I like a person that drinks out of a mason jar.
I mean, this is like
big,
this is a tomato sauce sized mason jar. It's
that's
like,
a good one.
I don't know if you can tell the
Well,
scope.
I'm drinking out of my Alaskan Brewing Company liter jar.
Especially on a day like today. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're in Washington at the moment. It's like the hottest day of the year so far. You
It
don't
is
hydrate.
super miserable. Awful.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, my husband got on an airplane this morning to go to Alaska, where it's solstice weekend and about 70 degrees and perfect blue sky.
See, life is not fair.
It is not fair.
There is injustice everywhere.
Everywhere. Yeah, and it begins at home.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so I want to dive right in. I have so many questions for you.
All right, I'm ready.
I read your book cover to cover. I have it right here. I've also listened to plenty of interviews that you've done in Alaska, and I even follow you on Instagram.
No
so
way.
I promise that I will get into the deeper questions that your book brings up. But I have to ask you the most pressing question out of the gate, which is, should the U.S. bomb Iran? Surprise.
Surprise. Yeah. I don't. No.
No.
I mean, okay. Your question is, should we bomb it? Could we do targeted strikes that don't bring us into a full-throated war? That's a subject of discussion. But I am really concerned about just the escalation that we're seeing. I mean, literally hour by hour, although I did see something now just about an hour ago where the president is saying he's going to give 2 weeks. But, he may change his mind on that too. But I absolutely recognize the right for Israel to defend itself, and appropriately so. But I think none of us want to see the Middle East embroiled in a massive all-out war that would bring the United States into it.
But on the question of, simply should the U.S. bomb Iran, you said no. And
reflexively no. Yeah.
Reflexively no.
Right.
Okay. All right. But it sounds like you'd be open to hearing arguments for targeted strikes.
I think, yes, the answer to that is I would be open to listening to those arguments. I think we in Congress should be having just this kind of information brought to us. I'm told that next week we're supposed to have an all-members meeting to discuss the situation in Iran. We are going to have debate on the floor with regards to war powers resolution. So we are in the midst of some really pivotal decisions that need to be guided by good information. And so I sure hope somebody from the administration doesn't come in and say, we got to bomb Iran and we're going to go forward with it. That's not how we need to be having this really, really weighty debate. And I was going to call it a conversation. I don't like the word conversation because how do you have a conversation about the potential for war? But I want to make sure that this is not a one-sided thing, right? That this is not just the administration. It's not just President Trump in the middle of the night that says, all right, I'm going, I'm all in, and everybody line up behind me. We have a role. Congress has a role in this, and how we make sure that that this is more of a discussion that goes on, rather than we'll act now, tell you later. I think that that's important.
I have some more policy questions that I want to get to later on, but let's talk about your book. So,
okay.
Reading your book, you get the sense that, of course, you work very hard, and that you also have a rich life outside of politics and D.C. You write
Best
about
life outside
biking,
politics.
skiing, duck hunting, group chats with the Gigi's, family trips, dinner over wine, the things that I think for a lot of people provide meaning in life, much more than politics can, or often does. People probably know you as the senator being hounded by the press in Capitol hallways. What is Lisa Murkowski like in those apolitical moments?
You mean like when I'm doing my fun things?
Yeah.
I am really fun.
When you're not being hounded by press in the Capitol.
Oh, yeah.
Or what are you like in the chats, in the group chats with the Gigi's? You mention them, but we don't really, we don't necessarily get exposed to that side of Lisa Murkowski.
No. I can be funny. I can push it right back at you.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, I can. And, it's funny when you get into a group of 8 women that are very, very close. I think there's not one of us that is afraid to speak up. So we talk a lot, and sometimes we talk over one another. But we have we've got a network and a bond that is so strong that oftentimes we don't even need to complete the sentence or complete the thought because somebody else is picking it up and you moved on to 6 different things. And I think my role in it is I'm not the bossy one. Oh, I can tell you who the bossy one is, but I wouldn't throw her under the bus. But I do have stories to tell, and so my experiences are a little bit different than my sisters and my cousins, and so sometimes I feel like I'm talking too much, and I just got to stop, sit back, and listen. And that's the best part of it, is just the listening part.
Do you have any hot takes or controversial opinions that only get shared with the Gigi's?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
My name also starts with G. I'm Galen. Do you want to share any?
Well, like for instance, I don't. My mom used to say, if you don't have something nice to say about somebody, don't say anything at all, right? So that's kind of my public. If somebody has said something that it was just like, that was the most ridiculous thing, I'm like, I'm not going to go out of the not going to go out of the lunch room where we've just had a policy meeting and tell some reporter that Galen just said the most ridiculous thing. But sometimes I do share a little bit of like, oh, you wouldn't believe. And it's not even necessary to name names because they're all in Alaska. They don't get into that kind of gossip. But it's just like, really?
You named some of them in the book.
I do
you
name some
of them in the book.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I ask in part about your apolitical life because they can't be totally separate. You talk about your staff not wanting you to walk to work solo after January 6th. You mentioned that there are people, or at least a person, who served time for threatening you. I mean, we're also talking less than a week after a Minnesota lawmaker was assassinated and another was wounded in what's been described as targeted political violence.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm curious how this current climate changes the kind of person that you can be, even outside of the political arena.
Yeah, it does. It does change things because I would be foolish. I would be naive to think that um, I'm just another person walking down the street. I'm a normal person, but I've got an extraordinary job, right? And that extraordinary job as one of 100 in the Senate um, allows me to be of interest to those in the media who will put my name and put my face out there. And so I have to have a level of awareness. And in fairness, I don't like that. I mean, I'm having a good conversation with you, but I really don't like talking about myself. When I am in these scrums in the halls of the Capitol, um, it's just like, back off, everybody. Give me some space. I really, why why do I have to answer you? And then I have to remember, okay, I'm a public servant, right? Um, I do have to answer to my constituents. I don't have to answer to every reporter, but I do recognize that I am in that public space, and there are there's there's a lot of unrest out there, and I've got to be aware. And it's not, it's not, it's not in my nature to be nervous, or to feel like I'm in a big city, so I have to be careful. I've had to learn that, and it's just it's not easy. I'd much rather wander around in my anonymity, go take hikes, and with the only security being my son's Labrador Retriever that's going to make sure there's no bears around.
Yeah, you talk about this sort of having to become aware and more careful in public in a space that's not the Capitol. Does this environment also change the kind of person or lawmaker that you can be in the political arena?
For fear of a physical or personal threat, do you think, or what? Where do you want to go with this?
Well, I guess I ask, does that fear change what you might say on the floor of the Senate, how you might vote, how you might talk to fellow colleagues?
Um, I know that when I separate myself, say from my party, or take a position or make a statement that would be viewed as counter to the president. I know that there are those that don't like it. I hear from them. They call my office. They send me emails. They're weighing in. Every now and again we get protests. So I hear that. Um, but I also understand that is part of what it means um, to be that public servant. Represent, voice your views as you feel need to be voiced, and then others may disagree, and how they disagree is really what matters, because I'm okay if the fact that you want to send a letter saying I think you're misinformed, I think you're wrong. I don't like it when they have to get nasty, or try to be to be harsh with the people that are on the receiving end of the phone when they call in. That's not right. But it is certainly their right and their ability to weigh in. It's when it goes beyond that in a threatening way that I think causes us to kind of step back and reconsider. I shared one of those examples in my book. During the Kavanaugh debate, um, uh, I received a threat that basically said, I'm going to make some foul accusation against one of your sons and see how you like it. And did I have that factored into the back of my head as I was debating all of that? I couldn't separate myself from it. I wish that I could tell you, that that didn't weigh in, but it did, and that was hard. And so you can see why you would have voices that are saying, you know what, it's just not. It's not worth it to speak up. But then if you don't speak up, there's consequences to that too, right?
Well, I guess for you personally, I mean, we know how you ended up voting in the Kavanaugh confirmation hearings. You voted not to confirm him. But for you personally, have there been moments where you've bit your tongue or maybe even changed a vote or something because of the climate we're in?
I don't think that I've changed a vote. Has it factored into my process prior to going into a vote? I think that again, you weigh a lot of things, and I think that is also one of the things that I tried to outline in the book was people think it's just easy, yes or no. Are you going to support him or not support him? And it would be really easy if all I did was decided to adopt the party position. Then I wouldn't have to deliberate any of this. I wouldn't have to think one way or another. But I don't do that. That's not how I operate. That's not how I represent. And so, yeah, there's a lot that goes into it. And, sometimes it's like you take it back to the conversation earlier about things that I might say within my GG chat group. It's just kind of spontaneous, and you look at it and it's like, well, I would never say that out loud in public because it's unnecessary snark. It's not contributing in a positive way. And it's stupid. It's risky. Why would you do that?
Yeah. I have a couple more questions about the political environment, but you write a lot about your decision about Brett Kavanaugh and about the impartiality of the Supreme Court and how it's really important to you. And in fact, you say that your vote on Kavanaugh, I mean, of course, you considered the accusations, but that a lot of it had to do with how he conducted himself in the hearing, that he spoke in a partisan fashion that you thought was unbecoming of the court. Has Kavanaugh been impartial during his time on the court as far as you're concerned?
I think he has tried. And believe me, I watch him. I watch all of the justices, but
wait, I believe he has tried is not yes.
Well, tell me again exactly how you phrased your question, and I'll tell you if
has Justice Kavanaugh been impartial during his time on the court?
I believe that he has been impartial. I haven't liked his decisions. I certainly didn't like where he came down on Roe. But the concern that I had was he had displayed what I felt was a lack of judicial temperament, where his own emotion, his own he could not contain his own personality. He could not sit back in an unbiased and in a calm demeanor and judge fairly.
He couldn't keep it confined to the Gore Girls chat.
yeah, maybe. But so in watching him, there is. I don't think anybody would suggest that Justice Kavanaugh has been one of those who kind of flies off the handle or demonstrates anything that you would describe as judicial intemperament. And so I do think that in that way, he has proved me wrong, and I had hoped. I actually sent him a note after the hearing, or excuse me, after the confirmation, And I said, I truly hope that you prove me wrong.
Have you talked about that before?
To him?
No, I wasn't in your book. At least I didn't read it in your book.
It wasn't in the book. I think I actually kept a copy of it. And now that I'm talking with you about it, I'm gonna have to see if I can find it, because it would be kind of an interesting part of just my own political background. But yeah, you know, here, look at it this way. It's not just Justice Kavanaugh who I voted against. It's Pete Hegseth, Secretary of Defense. My gosh, do I want him to prove me wrong? I voted against him for different reasons. But do I need him? Do we need to have a good Secretary of Defense? Yes. And so I am happy to be proven wrong if people demonstrate that that they really have that leadership ability.
You're talking about ways in which you've bucked your party on high-profile votes. And I'm curious, the majority of Alaskans, about 60%, aren't associated with either political party. You get much of your support from those unaligned voters. Is there a world in which you would ever become unaligned yourself?
I've been asked this so many times because, quite honestly, right?
Got to get the basic questions in there too.
Yeah.
And then I got some spicy follow-ups.
But this is a good one because I think it helps answer a lot of questions that people have, because many people think that I'm no longer a Republican because after the write-in, I ran as an independent, right? No, I didn't. I ran as Lisa. I wasn't the Republican nominee. Joe Miller was the nominee. He won that primary, so he was the nominee. I was still Lisa Murkowski. I hadn't changed my party. Everybody thinks I changed my party in order to run in the write-in. I was whatever you wanted to be. Galen, if you wanted to write in Lisa Murkowski, you could say she's a good Republican, or you could have said she's a great Democrat, or she's an amazing libertarian, or a Green Party. I was whatever anybody wanted who wanted me to continue serving. And that was kind of a cool thing. So that was my party liberation, if you will, at back in 2010. And so it was that freedom from Alaskans, not only that 60% that doesn't align themselves with one party or another, but I got a lot of support from Democrats. I got a lot of support from the Republicans as well. And so it was just kind of this big mishmash of constituency. So you're asked a question, though, about would I do like a Kyrsten Sinema or a Joe Manchin? Is that kind of the question? See, I'm making your job so easy for you. I'm just...
Yeah, I don't even have to ask the follow-up.
See, this is what happens in the GG chat. I kind of take over that.
But would you ever become unaligned yourself?
Well, I've thought about it. That's no great secret. But here's the challenge that you have in the United States Senate. There are two sides of the aisle. You sit on the left side of the aisle with the Democrats, or you sit on the right side of the aisle with the Republicans. And so when Joe and Kyrsten moved from being Democrats to being independents, they still sat in the same spot. They still sat in the same spot on their committees. So the way our system is structured in the Senate doesn't allow for that real independence, if you will. It's more of a, okay, now I don't have to have that label. I guess in my head, I've moved forward beyond the label. My party has not embraced me. I don't think that's a big news story there. But the values that I hold are going to be the same values regardless of whether there's an R behind it or an I behind it or an NP behind it.
Well, let me put some concrete, hypotheticals here.
All right.
say Democrats win 3 seats in the next midterm election in the Senate, and they say, we're going to let you pass bills that benefit Alaskans if you caucus with us. You don't have to become a Democrat. You can be an independent. But if you caucus with us and provide the sort of 4th vote that we need to get from where we are now, and you can pass legislation that helps Alaskans, would you do it?
It's an interesting hypothetical. You've started off with the right hook here is if this would help Alaskans, because at the end of the day,
I know you.
Yeah, you do.
I've done my reading.
Yeah, see? This is why this book is kind of scary, because now people know what motivates me, and it's this love for Alaska and what I can do. So that's my primary goal. I have to figure out how I can be most effective for the people that I serve. That's why I'm going to continue to do a really hard job, because I want to try to help people. My problem with your hypothetical is that as challenged as I think we may be on the Republican side, I don't see the Democrats being much better, and they've got not only their share of problems, but quite honestly, they've got some policies that I just inherently disagree with. One of the things that I thought was interesting in the book when we're writing it was this whole effort prior to me deciding that I was going to launch the write-in. People were looking at what happened after the primary, and they said the only way that you are going to retain this seat is if you basically have your name on the ballot, and the only way to do that is to basically carry the flag of the Libertarian Party, because that was the only party outside of the Republicans and Democrats. And so they said, basically, can you be a libertarian for a day to get elected? And they dangled that in front of me, and all of the people that I was talking to said, this is, of course, what you have to do. And I said, I can't do that. I can't be somebody that I'm not. I can't now say, I want this job so much that I'm going to pretend to be somebody that I'm not. That's not who I am.
But I guess the question is, you wouldn't become a Democrat, right? In this situation, you would be independent. And the next time Republicans are close to a majority, you could caucus with them. But I guess I more ask, is there a world in which by becoming unaligned or an independent, you could help Alaskans, that you'd consider it?
There may be that possibility. And let me put it into context from where I'm from. In Alaska right now, our legislature is governed by coalition. In the Senate, I think it's 14-6 and 21-19 in the House and in the Senate. We got a small legislature, but coalitions in both bodies. And this is one of the things that I think is good and healthy for us, and I think actually is one of the reasons why people are not surprised that I don't neatly toe the line with just party initiatives, because we've kind of embraced a governing style that says if you've got good ideas and you can work with her over there, it doesn't make any difference if you're Republican or Democrat. We can govern together for the good of the state, and so it is a coalition government. It's not a Republican. It's not a Republican majority or a Democrat majority. It is a coalition government.
So
if
could Democrats
we do
won
that?
3 seats in the next election and offered you ways to pass bills that benefit Alaskans, if you caucused with them, you'd consider it.
If we're talking about some kind of a coalition, that's something that again is not foreign to Alaskans. Is it foreign to our operations in the Senate? Yeah. It's not foreign in other governing bodies. You look at the makeup in so many other countries. So I'm evading your answer, of course, because it is supremely hypothetical. But you can tell that the construct that we're working with right now, I don't think is the best construct.
Mm-hmm. But it sounds like you're saying yes.
Is it something that is worthy of exploration? See, you're looking to make news today. Murkowski's going to head a coalition government.
I'm the little guy. I'm the little guy here. Help me. Don't give it to CBS. Don't give it to ABC. Give it to me.
Well, and this is one of the things where when we talk about like election reform and ways that we can actually break down some of these really partisan divides that come up, I think it's some of the things that we're seeing in a place like Alaska, where we're talking about coalitions that come together, where you have ranked choice voting that encourages people. You have a greater likelihood of being elected if you are not viewed as just the wholly partisan, but you're liked by you're supported by a group over here. Plus, there's a lot of folks that really like you as your number two. And so this idea of kind of melding melding different political thoughts. I don't know if that's the way I want to phrase it. If I saw that in writing, I probably would disagree. But it is a different way of looking at how we are addressing our problems rather than just saying it's red and it's blue.
I do want to ask specifically about Alaska's system. I'm, pretty nerdy. I've done whole docuseries about gerrymandering and different types of voting and the like. But, and I'm going to move on to that. But was that a yes? That yes, there's some openness to it.
There is some openness to exploring something different than the status quo. How's that?
Okay. All right. I'll take it. Today's podcast is brought to you by you, the listener. This podcast is made possible because of paid subscribers at gdpolitics.com. Paid subscribers get access to about twice the number of episodes. They can join our private chat and send in questions. They can also get access to the videos, and most importantly, they ensure that we continue to be guided by our principles of trying to understand the world and politics with curiosity, rigor, and a sense of humor. When you become a paid subscriber, you can also connect your account wherever you listen to podcasts and never miss an episode. Join the GD Politics podcast community today at gdpolitics.com. In fact, do it right now. We will still be here when you get back. That's gdpolitics.com. And thank you. You say in your book that you don't have a grand plan to fix what ails America. You offer your path as one example. That path is unique. I think folks are familiar with your write-in campaign in 2010 after you lost the Republican primary. You mentioned it already, gave you some freedom. Alaska is also now unique in its electoral structure. So the way that it works is you have a nonpartisan primary. Everyone runs together. The top 4 vote getters move on to the general election, where ranked choice voting is then used to elect a candidate in the general. Has that changed the kind of law? The argument that you hear from folks who put forward these kinds of reforms is lawmakers can feel free to be more cooperative, collaborative, maybe more moderate, but that's a kind of a difficult word to exactly put meaning to because it means different things to different people. But has this system changed the kind of lawmaker you can be?
I tell you, one thing that really has made a difference is opening up our primaries, because in addition to the ranked choice you mentioned, we just have an open primary. And so one of the things that we have seen play out in the legislature is you would have this I guess fear or threat that, if I say something, do something, vote a certain way, I'm gonna attract a more conservative primary opponent, or perhaps a more liberal primary opponent if you're a Democrat, and so by opening up the primaries, it's you're just in a different space there. So I think we're seeing a difference there. I think lawmakers are not afraid to be as collaborative, working with the other side, that's being viewed as a positive instead of a negative. I think that helps. And I think when it comes to campaigning and how you present yourself, one of the things that I really appreciate is, since 2010, I've learned that in my approach to campaign, I am not going to change who I am, who I'm directing my attention to, one group of voters for the primary, and then in the general, I've got to open it up to a much broader audience. It's the same campaign throughout because I'm trying to reach the same people from day one, and so I think that allows for greater authenticity as a candidate. I can't be more conservative during the primaries and then be a more moderated Lisa in the general. You got to be who you are.
So you're saying that it hasn't necessarily changed the kind of lawmaker that you can be because you already had that experience in 2010, but that you think it could for other people?
I think it could for other people. And again, I think I've seen this play out in our state legislature. And I think it has been to the benefit of the governance that comes out of our legislature and the cooperation, their effectiveness. I think we've seen that benefit. And it's interesting. People are like, oh, well, this is really a plot by the Democrats because they want to
Keep you in office.
Yeah, they want to get rid of they want to keep me in office, or they want to get rid of all the conservatives. And the thing that was so fascinating with the whole 2022 election was you returned me a moderate Republican. Democrat Mary Peltola came in to fill what had been a Republican seat for 44 years. And then very conservative governor, Republican, Mike Dunleavy, is returned for a second term. So it confuses people because it's like, wait a minute, I thought that this was a big Democrat plot. And it was like, well, if it was a big Democrat plot, how'd you get conservative Mike Dunleavy back in there? And so it just speaks to, look, the people are going to select who the people want to select. And give them the opportunity, give them the choice. Don't force them through this very narrow sieve of a primary where there's only a select few that are participating and voting, and then the rest of us have to deal with that in the general election.
I don't know if folks are listening to this before or after they know the results of the New York City mayoral primary on June 24th. But there's ranked choice voting in that primary, but it's not open. It's not nonpartisan. So me as somebody who's not registered with either party, I cannot vote in that election.
See, that's disqualifying, isn't it? Don't you think so?
Yeah. I mean, come on.
So let's get rid of those. Let's get rid of the closed primary.
All right. You heard it from Senator Murkowski herself.
Yeah.
So I want to go back to policy for a second. As an Alaskan senator, you understand the strategic and resource importance of the Arctic as well as anyone, maybe better than anyone else. Is the president right that America would be better served if Greenland were part of the United States?
No, I do not believe that in order to have a strong and beneficial relationship with Greenland, that it has to be part of the United States, that we need to occupy it, that we need to own it. No. Greenland has been a strong partner with us from a defense perspective for decades. We have an amazing Air Force base there at used to be called Thule, now it's Pitifik. But it is a cooperative relationship that we have had for decades. The Greenlanders have welcomed us as participants, and I think they have said quite clearly they would welcome greater participation, not only from a defense and security perspective, but also from a commercial perspective. And so whether it is because of geostrategic reasons we need Greenland, or because we want to access more minerals from Greenland, I'm saying, all right, that's the east coast of North America. But look at what we have on the west coast of North America. We have 49 of the 50 critical minerals that this country is seeking in a state like Alaska. We have the ability through our national security and defense posture up there to really not only take care of the Russians and the Chinese when they're poking around in our area, but we we have proven our strategic advantage in so many different ways. So if you want to have a place in the Arctic, know that you already have one. It's the 49th state. I think they got us for a steal of a deal. Um, uh, but I think if we want to make sure that from a national security perspective that we've got greater coverage on the east side of North America, it is to enhance our cooperative relationship with the people there.
I think that was maybe an easier one for you, but very very policy heavy, and now I got a harder one.
Okay, I love talking about the Arctic all the time.
Well, I know that's
yeah.
You can tell that I've framed every question around Alaska. Do you think you're gonna vote for the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, ABBA, as I've taken to calling it?
ABBA, yeah.
Do you have a favorite ABBA song?
Oh. No, don't let me go looping through ABBA.
Okay.
That will drive me crazy. Oh my gosh.
Dancing Queen, I'm just saying.
No, I was just thinking stupid Dancing Queen. Now I'm not going to be able to forget it. Okay, so back to the Big Beautiful Bill. I have been not hesitant to share the concerns that I have about the impact that the Medicaid reforms, provisions, cuts, whatever you want to call them. I have to make sure that things work in a state like Alaska.
Does that mean a sort of like carve out for Alaska, or changing the whole bill to reflect different priorities when it comes to Medicaid?
It is recognizing that you can't. Oftentimes, you just can't take kind of a broad brush approach and say all things apply evenly. And I'll use a very specific example: work requirements for SNAP or Medicaid. Okay, not unreasonable to expect that able-bodied adults would have to meet work requirements. Okay, you can talk to me all you want about that, and I think it's good policy. Now, I have a problem though, because in many of the communities in my state, 80%. Remember, 80% of the communities in Alaska are not. They're not part of a road system here, so you're isolated. You may not have more jobs in the village of Tuntatuliak than working for the school, working for the health clinic. Two people are at the village store. You may have the water operator, but in terms of jobs that you and I would describe as jobs, you don't have them. So what has happened previously is the work requirements for SNAP, right, that are already in existence. Alaska has had a waiver in those areas where you basically don't have a jobs economy. Well, now there's no waiver provision to account for that. So what am I supposed to do? Tell these people that the way that you will be able to keep your Medicaid is you have to go get a job in Anchorage? You have to leave your village? That doesn't make sense. That's not a policy that works.
The question would be, so is this something where you could get to yes for this if there was a waiver for Alaska on those Medicaid provisions? Or do you think there are other places in America like the situation you've described in Alaska?
Well, I think that there are other pockets where, again, you have limited economic opportunity, right, in some of our really rural areas. And so again, that's one example is work requirements, and I'm trying to be specific because I think it helps people. I'm not saying Alaska needs to be carved out of everything. What I'm saying is I've got to have some flexibility. I have to have some appreciation that not all states are equal in terms of how you're able to implement. I'll share another challenge with you. In order to determine eligibility for Medicaid, one of the provisions that's in the bill now is it would require that twice a year you have to prove your eligibility. All right, if I am in a village that maybe doesn't have internet, still fair number of those. I mean, you are literally having people um, uh, waiting for a fax machine so that they can fax some paperwork to somebody so that they can enter it into our system in Juneau, Alaska. Our system, they tell me that we're going to be close approaching our 50-year. Our system is not able to keep up with the demand that we have right now. I've been talking to folks in the administration and saying, you can have this requirement that we have to reduce our error rate by X date. And if I tell you that our system can't get built within that time period, are you going to fine me when I can't move any quicker? So it's been good conversations because they've really learned a lot about Alaska's situation. I think we're making some headway in understanding.
Do you think you're closer to yes or no?
Well, keep in mind, you and I are just talking about Medicaid. What else is in the bill?
I mean, there's a lot. There's a lot going on. But like, I guess I would say, do you feel like you're being listened to the extent that you're likely to get your priorities in this bill? Is kind of what because like you don't know what it's going to look like, so it's hard to say, yeah, I'll vote for it or I won't. Yeah. It's kind of an unfair question. I guess the question is more: is your caucus, is leadership, is this administration sort of taking your concerns as a moderate Alaskan serious enough that you think they're going to be in this bill?
I absolutely believe that they are taking my concerns and really the concerns of my colleague, because Senator Sullivan and I are working this together. We're trying to just reinforce again that you've got some challenges. It's not that we're saying your policy is bad. We're saying there are limitations on our ability to perform one way or another. So talk to us about how we might be able to work this. If they had just shut us down and said, you're on your own, you have a 60% error rate with SNAP, gone. You guys can't figure it out. They're not doing that. And they can't afford to do that because
they need your vote.
They need our votes. I mean, it's pretty much as simple as that. Now, having said that, do I think that that there's going to be a bill built that I think everything in it is just grand? No way. I've got to weigh this on balance, and and right now, as you and I are speaking, it is still being built. There's still things that are being put in and things that are being taken out and adjusted and modified. So we're going to see what this looks like. I don't often quote Elon Musk, but he did say it can be big or it can be beautiful, but I don't know that it can be big and beautiful. And I'm kind of thinking that maybe Elon pegged it on that. But it's a hard thing to put a package like this together. And we have limitations within our own rules that there's some things that, quite honestly, we've been advocating for that I'm not certain are going to survive through the Byrd rule process because they may be viewed more as policy and less as revenue and spending side. So that's the next step. So there's a lot more to go before we're done.
I know we're running out of time, so I want to make sure I get to one of my favorite questions. I spend a lot of time in the public opinion space. We talk a lot about public opinion on this podcast, and I know, from your book that you're very focused on thinking about and representing Alaska's interests in Washington. So my question is, which way does leadership run? Do leaders look at what the public wants and try to get it done on their behalf? Or do leaders form their own views about what is right and bring the public along with them?
I think it has to be a meld of both. Because I can't come in as a leader, as a policymaker, and just in isolation say, I'm Lisa Murkowski, and I've got all the answers here. And my job is to make sure that you all realize how brilliant this is. That doesn't work. I have to really try to understand where my constituents are coming from, what really matters to them. Take kind of that core, and then figure out, all right, well, how can we build this into something that could be implemented into policy that's going to make that difference for you on the ground here. So I spend a lot of time just kind of listening to what people are talking about. My son has a business that puts him at a farmer's market every Saturday. And when I'm in town, one of the things that I like to do is go help out at the market, because I'm in a space that is very apolitical, right? It's a farmer's market. And people, it's not like you're going to a rally to go talk to a politician or to go to an event and you're thinking, okay, if I have a chance to talk to Lisa, I'm going to unload on her. This is just super organic. This is, oh, hey, it's Lisa. Thank you for this. Or, I wish you'd done that. Or, hey, here's a really great idea. And it's just kind of this organic town square that, I find really refreshing. Now that, of course, everybody knows about it, I'm, I don't know.
Now they're all showing up. It's like a constituent office at the farmer's market.
My son doesn't like it when my line is longer than his. So.
No. Well, is there ever a moment where you said, polling, public opinion, be damned?
Yes.
I think this is right, and I'm going to go forward with it.
Yes. The 2010 election. Everybody knew that there was no way that once you lost a primary that you were going to be able to win an election, and that I didn't do any polling because once I'd made the commitment to go to respond to Alaskans, it was kind of like, we're not going to waste a penny on polling because we know what it's going to say. It's going to say it's not possible. And it was very much gut all the way. And so that was a time when you just kind of say, polls be damned. We're going to let Alaskans decide on this. And they did.
I'm going to try to sneak in one more question because it is something that I've been mulling. And you did bring up your son. I'm about the same age as your sons, and you're actually the exact same age as my dad. And this past weekend was Father's Day. And so I asked him, okay, when I'm your age, what's your biggest concern about what's your, in politics, it's always the crisis of the moment that gets talked about.
Mm-hmm.
I said, what are you most worried about when I'm your age? I'm not going to say what age that is. You can share it if you want to. It's also publicly available information.
Yeah.
But anyway, it sparked a really interesting conversation for us that took us out of that exact moment. When you think about the world that your kids will inhabit when they're your age, what are you most concerned about?
I am most concerned that the democracy that we know and we value today will not look the same. Because I'm seeing some challenges, I'm seeing some pushes in some direction that I certainly didn't expect or anticipate when I came into this position over 2 decades ago. That when I was my son's age, I was never worried about democracy. I don't think I ever asked my father, in when he was in office, are you worried about the state of democracy in America today? And so that's what I worry about. And I hope that if my sons ever see this discussion between us, 30 years from now, they say, well, that was a silly question. Of course, democracy is just fine. I don't know what she was worried about. That's what I'm hoping for.
All right. Well, I think that's a good place to leave things. Thank you so much for speaking with me today, Senator Lisa Murkowski.
Thank you. It was enjoyable.
My name is Galen Druk. I'm in the early days of getting this podcast off the ground, and I appreciate your support in any way possible. First and foremost, go to gdpolitics.com and become a subscriber. Even consider becoming a paid subscriber so you'll get about twice as many episodes and you can see all of the videos and chat in the paid subscriber chat room. Of course, also subscribe to GD Politics wherever you get your podcasts so you'll know when a new episode is in the feed. You could even rate and review us and maybe even tell a friend about the podcast. Thanks so much for listening, and we will see you soon.